Alright, so I'm going to create a range of motion test here. The way I'm going to start it is by first hiding the joints. And there's a few ways to do it. I'm actually going to take the whole joints group and make a new layer. And I'm just going to call this one joints. And I'm going to turn off visibility. There we go. Now the geometry as well, it's also selectable currently. And right now it's still in the geometry group, so all I have to do here is turn on template, then to reference mode, so now I can't select that either. Yeah, and then I want to turn off the IK handles in general, so I can just go ahead and select those. There they are right here under the IK group. I can grab all of those and hit H, and that way they're hidden, and I'm just going to be selecting the geometry at this point. But the other thing is I do have some joints still in the feet, and this is a reverse foot roll. So I could just hide that layer as well. So the only thing I can grab now is the actual geometry. Sorry, the actual control objects. Yeah, so with that I can just grab these control objects. Here's what I'm selecting. Deselect the camera. That's all this stuff here. And I can also put this on a layer as well. I can double click this layer. I'm going to call this control objects. There we go. And I'm going to keep it selectable. And I'm going to run a quick script that lets me keyframe it or zero it out or just select them. Alright, so I'm going to head over to the custom tab here, and in the bottom right you have this like little sideways smiley face with unibrow. I'm going to click this, and first I'm going to clear this out. So I'm going to clear all three of these, and then first I'm going to select it. So I'm going to draw a box around all of the control objects and let go. And then this is how you know, it'll show you the selection in the top one here. So what we can do to make this into a script is just, I'm going to left click and drag up. It's going to select all of these. Now I can middle click and drag into this custom panel, and it asks me, do I want to do Mel or Python? I'm going to stick with Mel. And if I want to edit it, I can just right click and go edit. And I'm going to call this controllers. Yeah, just controls. And you can see it, you know, it populates up here. So now when I'm just going to deselect everything, and all I have to do now is when I select, when I click on this, it just grabs all of the controllers. Okay, so that's super useful. Next thing I want to do, I'm going to clear this out again, is I want to, when I double click it, I want to actually set a keyframe. So it's going to work a lot the same way, but so what I can do is just draw a box around everything, and then press S, and that sets a keyframe for everything here. Okay, so now I can copy this over. I'm going to right click and go edit, and this is going to be in the double click command. So I can go over to this menu, just grab everything, middle click and drag and drop it. Alright, so let's make sure that it works before we continue. So I'm going to choose a new frame. When I click it once, it selects it. When I click it twice, it selects it and then sets a keyframe. So that's going to be really useful, because if I go to a new frame and I'm posing it and I'm getting carried away and I'm forgetting to do a few things, like maybe I don't have a pre-key before this, or maybe you know, I don't have auto key on. So all I have to do to set a key here is just double click, and then that sets a key, so it's all ready to go. So I'm going to go back to frame 0, hold shift, double click the timeline, right click and delete. Now I do want to have one more controller, and this is going to zero everything out. So I want to have a button when you click it, he zeroes back to his neutral pose. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to go to the script editor here, and I'm going to clear it all out. Now I'm going to draw a box around everything. Okay, and it does grab the camera too, so you can just deselect that if you want. The reason it's selecting actually is because there's a camera here. I can just hide that. Let's try this again. That way it's not in the same scene. So I'm going to grab everything. Sorry, in the same script. I'm going to grab everything. Now I'm going to highlight, translate XYZ, rotate XYZ, hit enter. Sorry about that. the one thing that's happening here, the reason that went and bent the fingers is because if you remember, we had groups for the hands. Okay, so we got to do that. I'm going to grab everything here, and you can see there's my left and right hand groups. So at one point, you can see if I grab the left hand group, this is not zeroed out. That's because all these values came in from the groups. We accidentally tore them out of the group. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab the right hand control 01, and I'm going to middle click and drop it back in that group. And I'm going to grab the left hand control 01, drop that back in this group. So the nice thing is these are zeroed back out again, and it's the group that contains that rotationary data. Okay, this is going to work this time. Okay, so it's good to know when you're doing this, by testing this you can see what goes wrong. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to just erase this. I'm going to draw a box around everything, and I'm going to highlight all the translate and rotate and tap 0 and enter. Now I'm going to grab the scaling X, Y, Z, press 1 and hit enter. And this will all cause it to freeze out whenever you run the script. So I'm going to just grab everything, highlight it, middle click and drag, drop it onto the custom bar. I'm going to choose Mel again, right click edit, and I'm going to call this 0. There we go, save all shelves. Okay, it looks pretty good. So now what happens here is when I move it, and instead of going through the lengthy process of grabbing them all at the same time again, you could just run the script, right? Happy guy. Alright, so now all I have to do is go over here and press the 0 button. Boop. And it zeroes out the character. Alright, so we're ready for some animation.